What if I told you? There are places on this planet where death isn't just a tragic accident. It's written into the law. Imagine walking into a government office, signing a few documents, and instead of granting you a driver's license, the state grants you permission to die. And here's where it gets darker. In some places, the choice isn't yours at all. Instead, the law decides your life is no longer yours to keep. One mistake, one trial, one sentence, and your death is legally ordered. But that's not even the strangest part. Because scattered across history, and even hidden in modern laws today, there are deaths that sound too shocking to be real. Rituals that force people into fire, traditions that demand blood, legal loopholes that quietly allow someone to starve themselves to death, while the law just watches. And all of it is completely legal. Across the world, different countries, some modern, some ancient, some you'd never expect, have created legal pathways to death. Some are framed as compassion, others as justice, and some are simply so bizarre they feel like horror stories masquerading as laws. But once you know them, you'll never look at the idea of legal death the same way again. So buckle up, because today we're uncovering the shocking, haunting, and sometimes unbelievable stories of every death that's legally allowed in different countries. And trust me, the last one will leave you speechless. Let's start where the idea of legal death feels almost merciful. In Belgium, the Netherlands, Canada, and Switzerland, the law allows a person to decide when their life should end. It's called euthanasia, or assisted suicide. A hospital room, quiet, sterile. Instead of doctors fighting to save a patient, they are legally helping them die. In Belgium, euthanasia was legalized in 2002. But here's the shocking twist. It's not limited to the elderly. In extreme cases, even teenagers and children have been legally allowed to end their lives. The youngest was just 17 years old. Now imagine being under 18, sitting with doctors, and the law agrees that you can choose to die. In the Netherlands, it goes even further. Patients with psychiatric conditions, not just physical illnesses, have been approved for euthanasia. That means people battling depression or trauma can legally request death. And Switzerland? It's become the world's capital for what's chillingly called suicide tourism. People travel from countries where assisted death is illegal just to end their lives in Switzerland. Entire organizations exist solely to help foreigners die legally, often in small apartments or hotel rooms, with strangers by their side. But here's the disturbing question. Once the law allows people to choose death, where does it stop? Now, not all legal deaths are gentle. Some are brutal and unavoidable. The death penalty, execution by the state, is still practiced in dozens of countries. In the United States, prisoners spend years, even decades, on death row. They wake up every morning not knowing if this will be the day their final meal is served. In Japan, it's even crueler. Prisoners aren't told their execution date in advance. They live every single day in a constant state of dread until one morning. Guards simply walk into their cell and say, "Today is the day." Imagine that, going to sleep every night not knowing if you'll ever wake up again. Saudi Arabia still carries out public executions, sometimes by beheading, sometimes by firing squad. Crowds gather. The government calls it justice. In Iran, executions have been carried out by hanging from cranes in public squares. A punishment meant not only to kill, but to humiliate. And here's where it gets terrifying. According to Amnesty International, every year people are executed for crimes they may not have even committed. One wrong judgment, one corrupt trial, and death becomes a permanent, legal mistake. But some legal deaths aren't about punishment. They're about tradition. Take sati, an ancient practice in India. When a husband died, his widow was expected to throw herself onto his burning funeral pyre. Not only was it encouraged, for centuries it was considered an honorable duty. Today, it's illegal. but rare cases have still been reported in the last few decades. Then there's Japan's seppuku. For centuries, samurai were expected to stab themselves in the stomach to preserve their honor if they failed in battle or brought shame. While no longer practiced legally, seppuku wasn't just tolerated, it was institutionalized as a noble, legal death. And here's something few know. In certain Tibetan Buddhist traditions, there's a ritual called sky burial. The body is deliberately offered to vultures, not considered a crime, but a sacred act. Each culture redefines death in its own way, not as a tragedy, but as honor, duty, or even sacrifice. And then come the strange loopholes, deaths that don't seem legal, but technically are. In the US, a patient has the legal right to refuse medical treatment, even if it leads directly to their death. That means if someone denies life-saving surgery or refuses food and water, the law can't intervene. In Switzerland, assisted suicide is only legal if it's not done for selfish reasons, meaning if someone helps you die because they feel compassion, it's legal. But if they gain money or property from it, suddenly it's a crime. And in some countries, voluntary starvation has been legally recognized as a right. For example, in India, religious ascetics have used fasting to death as a spiritual practice. And in some cases, courts have protected it as religious freedom. These aren't deaths carried out by force. They're deaths quietly allowed by loopholes in the law. So what does all of this show us? It shows that death isn't just an inevitable part of life. It's something humans have tried to control, legislate, and even ritualize. In some countries, death is framed as compassion. In others, it's punishment. In others, it's a tradition passed down for centuries. But here's the most chilling truth. The law, no matter where you are, has found ways to control the one thing no one should be able to control. And right now, as you're watching this, someone in the world is facing a death that is not just inevitable. It's legal. And these are just the ones we know about. Because if you thought these deaths were shocking, the hidden ones will terrify you even more.